Brian Lovvorn, Amy Slayton's husband on 1,000-Pound Sisters, said bad things about their child. But Amy made it clear that she would not put up with that. "Listen, Brian Lovvorn, I married you for love, but my child is my soulmate. I will not stay quiet if you speak ill of him," Amy said. "I will divorce if it happens again." The morning sun shone through the Slayton family's blinds, making golden lines on the living room floor. Amy Slayton, who is on the show 1,000-Pound Sisters, was sitting on the couch with a warm cup of coffee in her hands. She was really tense, and her typically happy demeanor was affected by it. Brian Lovvorn, her husband, had just said something mean and unpleasant about their child again. Words like those had come out before, but this time Amy felt something shatter in her chest. Their tiny bundle of joy was seated on the floor with crayons all over the place, happily creating colorful shapes. Every stroke of the crayon showed innocence, and Amy's heart filled with love and a desperate need to protect. She realized she had to do something. She took a big breath, put down her coffee, and stood up. Brian, who had been resting on the counter, acted like nothing had happened when she looked at him. But Amy's voice was like steel in the morning air. "Brian Lovvorn," she said in a clear, steady voice, "I married you for love. I had faith in us. But my child is my one true love. And I won't be quiet if you say bad things about him. Not again. Do you get it?" Brian was about to say something, but Amy stopped him.
"No.
"I'm not joking. I will divorce you if it occurs again. I love you, but I love my child more than you. And I will do everything I can to keep him safe." Everyone in the room stopped talking. Their youngster looked up from the floor, feeling the tension but not quite understanding it. Amy went down and hugged the little one closely. She said, "You are perfect, and I will never let anyone make you feel differently." Brian's face went from annoyed to worried. He understood for the first time that words weren't simply words, they had effects, and Amy loved her child unconditionally. The way the family worked together changed during the next few days. Brian tried to say he was sorry by making clumsy promises and reassurances. Amy listened, but she was still careful. She always kept an eye on their child's health. She realized that love alone couldn't make bad behavior go away. Deeds had to match words. Family and friends saw the stress, but they also recognized how strong Amy was. She had created a boundary that no one could cross, indicating that being a mother wasn't only about taking care of your kids, it was also about sticking up for them no matter what. The Slayton family finally reached a shaky peace, but Amy's promise to protect her child above all else stayed strong. Brian finally began to realize how serious his comments were and that love and respect were not optional, they were necessary. Amy's fierce and unchanging love became the heart of the home, a reminder that some ties are unbreakable and some lines will never be crossed.
But
the living room of Tammy Slayton's residence was bathed in a warm golden light as the morning sun peeked through the drapes. Tammy had determined that today would be different from any other day. For the first time in years, she was going to sit in the front seat of the car. She had been talking about this moment like it was a championship match ever since she lost a lot of weight and was able to move around more easily. Amy, who was busy preparing coffee in the kitchen, stuck her head out and remarked, "Tammy, are you sure you're ready for this? The front seat doesn't have as much legroom as the back." Tammy smirked and flipped her hair in a big way. "Amy, I've been ready for this since I could finally buckle my own seatbelt without a fight. Today, I ride shotgun like a queen." Chris, their brother, came in with a bag of goodies for the excursion to the park they were going to. He laughed and said, "Lord help us. I'm driving extra carefully if Tammy is in the front seat. I don't want to end up in a viral video called Front Seat Fail." Tammy looked at the car like it was a prize on a game show when it pulled into the driveway. She took a deep breath, grabbed her cane to help her balance, and stepped over. Amy was standing nearby, feeling half nervous and half proud. Chris was already in the driver's seat, grinning like a naughty child. Amy asked, "Do you need help getting in?" "Nope. I got this," Tammy said with confidence. She opened the door, leaned against the frame, and in one astonishingly smooth motion, sat down. The seatbelt clicked without any trouble. There was silence in the air for a moment. Tammy smiled big after that. "Wow, I fit perfectly." And this seat has a view. I feel like I'm the co-pilot now. Amy took a picture and smiled. First selfie in the front seat. We're making history here, people. The trip to the park became a small adventure. Tammy started pointing out things she had never seen from the back seat, including strange tiny shops, weird signage, and even a yard full of pink flamingos. She turned up the radio and sang along, which made Chris and Amy laugh so hard that Chris almost missed a turn. Tammy got out of the car with a look of victory when they finally got to the park. "I told you all," she remarked with pride. Sometimes the smallest change in seat feels like the biggest win. Amy hugged her on the side. Next step, the front seat of a plane. I smirked. Baby steps, Amy. Baby steps. Tammy's simple car ride had transformed into one of the best days she'd had in a long time. This shows that even the tiniest victories may feel like a big adventure. But the blinds at the Windsor Lane Rehabilitation Facility let in faint rays of sunlight in the late afternoon, which made thin golden lines on the floor. Tammy was sitting in her extra-wide recliner and looking through her phone without much interest. Caleb pushed himself over from the small kitchenette area. They had been married for 3 months, but the facility was small and loud, so those months hadn't been as happy as they had imagined. "Tammy," Caleb said, his voice a mix of doubt and anger, "I think we need to talk about the whole privacy thing again." Tammy let out a sigh, locked her phone, and put it on the side table. "Yes, I know. We can't even talk for 5 minutes without someone coming in to check our vitals or bring us medicine." A nurse had come in without knocking that morning when they were having breakfast and talking about their hopes and dreams for the future. The workers didn't try to hurt anyone. They were just doing their jobs. But it made Tammy and Caleb feel like their marriage was always on show. Caleb leaned forward in his wheelchair and spoke more quietly, even though the door was closed. "Tam, I love being with you," I said. "I just want time for us. Time for real us. Not with machines that beep, not with the TV blasting from the hallway, and not with someone asking if we've done our therapy exercises yet." Tammy laughed quietly, but her eyes showed the same desire. "You know what's funny? Before we got married, I thought of how nice it would be to have our own apartment, maybe with a porch swing. I didn't expect we'd have to figure out how to hold hands without a nurse assuming one of us was hurt." That made them both giggle, but the truth behind it was hard. They attempted to make the most of what they had later that night. Tammy turned on her favorite song at a low volume so it wouldn't bother anyone. Caleb moved closer till their knees brushed. They talked softly about a lot of things, like their aspirations for the future and funny things that happened when they were kids. It seemed like they were the only 2 people in the world for a time, but then a staff member entered the door without knocking and brought them drink. Tammy's shoulders fell. Caleb looked her in the eye, and they both knew this couldn't last forever. Caleb said slowly, "I think we should talk to the staff about setting up a time when we can't be disturbed. Even for just 1 hour a day. We have earned that." Tammy nodded her head. "Yes. We're not only patients, we're also a pair. We should be able to feel like one." They talked about it at a meeting with the facility's manager the next day. The manager listened to them and even came up with a plan, a small sign on their door during specific hours that said, "Private time." It wasn't perfect. Emergencies would still come first, but it was a start. Tammy and Caleb sat together in tranquility that night when the sign went up for the first time. No interruptions or sudden intrusions, just the heater's steady hum and the warmth of being together. They felt like newlyweds again for the first time in weeks. But you might think you remember everything from the first season of 1,000-Pound Sisters, but you don't. There was a lot of craziness, drama, and sweet surprises that you surely didn't see coming behind the laughs, the fighting, and the memorable one-liners. When Tammy and Amy stepped on the scale for the first time, everyone in the room stopped talking. Chris, who was standing in the rear with a soda in his hand, almost spit it out from laughing as the scale beeped loudly and said, "Please weigh 1 at a time." But what didn't the cameras show? Tammy really did look at the scale, smile, and say, "Rude." Viewers saw the sisters shopping for nutritious food. However, the part where they accidentally went to the snack aisle was deleted from the broadcast. Amy promised that she only took 1 box of cookies for emergencies, But when the crew looked in the cart later, there were 6. Tammy called her the Cookie Bandit and made fun of her the whole way home. Everyone recalls when Amy tried to cook a big salad for lunch. Tammy's response when she saw spinach for the first time in months wasn't shown. She took a bite, looked right into the camera, and said, "This is rabbit food. Get me real lettuce." The crew laughed so hard they had to stop filming. The family cookout looked like it would be enjoyable, but a storm came in behind the scenes. Not only a storm outside, Tammy and Amy are fighting over who grabbed the final piece of cornbread. Chris had to act as a referee and keep the cornbread hostage until they agreed to split. In the end, the cornbread mysteriously vanished, only to be found later in Chris's truck. We witnessed Tammy heroically trying to walk farther every day, but many missed the bit where Amy brought a loud hailer to cheer her on. "Go, Queen, go." Amy would yell every time Tammy took a step. The neighbors weren't happy. The doctor did give the sisters a serious talk, but in between takes, Tammy saw a jar of sweets on the counter and whispered, "Is that for patients or just you?" The nurse laughed so hard that she almost dropped the clipboard. Tammy talked about her anxieties of surgery, and it was a moving scene. Amy had just given her a pep talk in the parking lot while they were eating French fries before they started filming. She gave one to Tammy and said, "Here for courage." Tammy ate it and then remarked, "Okay, I'm ready now." At the end of the season, both sisters had made improvement and were hopeful for the future. They got a pizza to celebrate when the cameras stopped rolling and spent the night laughing, making plans, and thinking about the next chapter. Amy promised to keep to her diet, Tammy promised to work more, and Chris promised never to share his cornbread again. The lesson is that season 1 wasn't only about numbers on a scale, it was also about family, humor, being stubborn, and the little things that you didn't see on TV but would never forget if you had. But the lace curtains in Amy's kitchen let in a lovely glow from the late afternoon sun. She was sitting at the small dining table with a lukewarm cup of coffee in front of her. She was stirring it without thinking. The place was too quiet for her taste. She could usually hear Tammy yelling from the porch or texting her about a funny TikTok video, or Amanda coming over without warning with a grocery bag and some gossip. But today, quiet closed in from all sides. Amy let out a sigh and leaned back in her chair. Her thoughts had been racing for days, like an engine that had been running too long. Tammy had been working too hard in physical therapy because she wanted to reach the doctor's goal weight before her next checkup. Amanda had been working extra shifts at the cafe, not getting enough sleep, and still finding time to help Tammy. And what about Misty? She had been more distant lately and hadn't answered calls soon away. Amy had a gut feeling that something was wrong with her too. Amy convinced herself that she wasn't being overdramatic. But her gut warned her that something was wrong. She knew her sisters could be stubborn and act like everything was all right until it wasn't. Amy had made up her mind by the time the clock struck 5. She put on her flip-flops, grabbed her purse, and drove her old SUV to Tammy's house. She called Amanda on the way. "Hey," Amy said, attempting to seem casual. "Are you at work?" I could hear Amanda's voice, but it was a little hard to hear because of the cacophony of dishes clanging. "Still have an hour left."
"Why?"
"Just, you look exhausted lately. Is everything okay?" Amy pushed. Amanda thought for a second, then laughed dryly. "Girl, I'm okay. Just busy. You know who I am." Amy wasn't sure. "Well, after work, come to Tammy's. It's a night for sisters. No excuses." The sky was pink and gold by the time Amy got at Tammy's house. Tammy was already on the porch in her wheelchair, with a blanket over her lap and her phone in her hand. "What's going on with the face?" Tammy said, raising an eyebrow as Amy got out of the car. Amy sat down next to her. "I'm just worried about you all. I think everyone is pushing themselves too hard." Tammy shrugged her shoulders. "Come on, Amy. We're all adult ladies. We can do it." Amy shook her head. "Yeah, but just because you can handle it doesn't mean you should do it alone." Amanda and Misty came one at a time. Amanda was still wearing her work apron, and Misty had a small container of homemade chili with her. They all met in Tammy's living room, where the TV was playing softly in the background. The discourse was light for a while, funny memories, teasing each other, and talking about the lads. But then Amy took a deep breath and told the truth. "I'm not trying to be annoying," she added, looking at each sister in turn. "I love you all. I can tell when you're pressured, when you're quiet, and when you're pushing yourselves to the limit. We've come too far to let stress and stubbornness tear us apart again." There was a break. Amanda bit her lip. Tammy's eyes became softer. Misty nodded slowly. Finally, Amanda said something. "I guess I've been working too hard." "I didn't want to put too much on you," Tammy said. "I've been trying so hard to get that number on the scale that I've been skipping breaks. My therapist constantly encouraging me to take it easy." Misty let out a sigh. "And I've been going through some things, but I didn't want to talk about them." Amy held out her hands, and her sisters did too, making a warm, messy circle. Amy said firmly, "We're sisters. We share the good, the bad, and the ugly. Nobody is doing this alone." There was a lot of laughter, homemade chili, and light teasing for the remainder of the night. Amy still felt the worry deep in her chest, but it was less heavy now, because no mountain or scale was too high to climb as long as they were together. Amy grinned to herself that night as she drove home. She might not be able to stop her sisters from having problems, but she could make sure they never had to deal with them by herself. But the Slayton family was already buzzing with excitement on the morning of Gage's first birthday. Amy had been organizing this celebration for weeks, trying to make it the most colorful, fun-filled day her young boy would ever remember. Tammy, on the other hand, said, "He ain't gonna remember a thing, Amy. He is one." Amy rolled her eyes but started putting up balloons in bright blue, sunny yellow, and candy red. She ordered a huge cake that looked like a cartoon dinosaur, which she said was Gage's favorite, even though he largely still liked mashed bananas and sweet potatoes. Tammy had promised she wouldn't run around assisting, but she ended up becoming the official gift inspector. She would shake every wrapped present that came in and guess what was inside with a lot of drama. "This one? Socks for sure." "Oh, wait, it's shaking." "Probably socks with bells," she quipped, and everyone laughed. Chris, of course, came with a silly party hat shaped like a hamburger and said, "If I'm going to party, I'm going to do it in style." He then taste-tested the chips and cookies just to make sure they were good. By midday, there were so many people in the backyard that it sounded like a wrestling match. There was a bouncy house that Tammy said she couldn't go into because physics wouldn't allow it, and a bubble machine that made the youngsters run around and squeal with joy. Adults couldn't help but trample through the bubbles. The best part was when Amy brought out the huge dino cake. Everyone came up to watch as she put it in front of Gage. He squinted at the colorful creature as if it had done something wrong to him. He prodded the frosting with one fat finger and then smeared it on his cheek after a minute of confusion. Laughter filled the garden. Gage jumped in headfirst, encouraged by the cheers. He got green frosting all over the place, including his hair, clothes, and even Tammy's sleeve, even though she was 3 feet away. Tammy laughed and added, "Lord, that cake is going to be in his ears until next Tuesday." The rest of the afternoon was full with goofy games, singing "Happy Birthday" out of tune and touching moments. Amy couldn't help but cry as she saw her baby child surrounded by love. She reflected about all the hard times, difficulties, and good times she had in the past year and felt proud. As the sun went down and the last visitors left, Tammy gave Gage a small plush dinosaur that she had picked for herself. She messed up his frosting-covered hair and quipped, "For the record, I was the fun aunt before it was cool." Amy smiled. "You still are, sis." And just like that, the first birthday celebration was over. It was messy, noisy, and chaotic, but it was great. But that morning, Tammy had been feeling a little antsy. Recently, the hospital where she lived gave her a new nurse named Jenna. Jenna was a young woman who was bright and cheery, had a lovely smile, and was always patient. Tammy was used to the same old things: therapy, meals, and doctor visits. She felt a little excited about the notion of doing something different, especially when Jenna proposed they cook together. "I thought it might be fun," Jenna replied as she pushed Tammy towards the little kitchen. "You know, Cooking can be good for your health. We could also make something healthy that tastes good. Tammy's eyes brightened up, and for a moment, they sparkled with excitement. She always enjoyed food, not just eating it but also learning about it. The trouble had always been finding the right balance, and her path to health had been full with obstacles. But today was different. She wasn't by herself today. They started with a simple stir-fry of vegetables, grilled chicken, and quinoa. Tammy reached for a carrot after Jenna carefully put all the ingredients on the counter. At first, she was unsure since her hands were clumsy from not doing such things in months. But Jenna was gentle with her and showed her how to slice veggies properly. She also taught her some ways for adding flavor without adding calories. It's all about balance, Jenna explained as she added some paprika to the pan. You can taste good food without feeling bad about it. Tammy chuckled quietly, and the sound filled the little kitchen. She hadn't laughed like that in a long time. They spoke about food, family, therapy, and dreams while they cooked. Tammy talked about her problems, how frustrated she was with how slowly things were going, and even how scared she was about the procedures she wanted to have in the future. Jenna listened without judging and gave her support and useful advice. The smell of garlic and onions quickly filled the room. Tammy carefully stirred the pan, paying attention to the sizzling sounds and the beautiful colors of the veggies. It was like a meditation. Jenna told her to taste the sauce and let Tammy add more seasoning as needed. It was a modest win, but it meant a lot. They all sat down together when the food was ready. Tammy stared at the plate in front of her. It was a beautiful, balanced meal, and she felt proud of herself. "Did I do this?" she asked, almost in amazement. "Yes, you did," Jenna responded with a smile. "And you did it so well." Tammy felt hopeful for the first time in weeks. Cooking with Jenna wasn't just about making food. It was also about getting back her sense of independence, confidence, and happiness. She remembered that mending wasn't only about the scales or the operations. It was also about small wins like this one that might change everything. Tammy leaned back, happy and deep in meditation, when they were done eating. "Maybe," she continued slowly, "we could do something new like this every week. It doesn't feel like therapy when we cook together. It feels normal." Jenna nodded and softly squeezed Tammy's hand. "We'll make it our thing. Making food, having fun, and learning. Tammy, take it one step at a time. That's how things change." Tammy thought for the first time in a long time that her life could be more than just routines and problems. She thought it could be full of taste, joy, and hope. Hello, lovely viewers. Welcome to my channel. My name is Mina, and I hope you have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you appreciate the video.